So let's get started. First off, this is what I do in the support circle for the parents that are there as well. So um, just thought that I would bring this out to you guys so that you know what it's about. So let's go through this question. It says, my grade 1 boy was bullied a lot this fall, developed anxiety about school, and now are having issues with him lashing out at school that were his friends. So he's lashing out at his friends now. You as the mom are emotionally exhausted. Absolutely. I'm sure he is too. We talked about being calm, and at home we are able to help him. How can I help him feel better at school? I'm worried we'll have to switch schools if this continues. Okay. So this is hard. So there's different pieces to this that I would like to break down for this. First off, yeah, my heart goes out to you. It's hard and it's exhausting. And it's really hard too, because with many of the schools and the teachers, there's only so much they can do, and there's only so much knowledge that they have in all of this as well. So my background as well is working with responders on stress systems, which we have stress struggles here. And we also have the traumas. So there's traumas that have pursued. So there's different pieces to this. Okay. So the first thing is to stop and talk about his nervous system. We're going to talk about the stress animals to start with. So that's the first piece we should dive into, is when we're stressed. So we have our dolphin, where we're calm, engaged, where he used to be calm and engaged with his friends. Okay. And now he's switched to clownfish. So clownfish is where we're like Nemo's dad in Finding Nemo, where we're afraid, we're worried about everything, afraid of what's going to happen, on high alert because there's that danger out there now. So if we think of Nemo's dad was carefree, adventuring, all of that out there, until his kids and his wife were like all eaten by, I believe it was a shark. And so now he knows that this threat is there, right? He knows that threat is there now. And so what happens is this clownfish is always out. That nervous system is always heightened. This creates, if we look at this from a trauma pathway, this creates that neural pathway in the brain where when something happens too much, too fast, too soon, and our brain is not ready for it, then a neural pathway is created that is a trauma that is created in that neural pathway. And that neural pathway is then going to protect you. Anytime that it senses that anything at all could be similar to that situation, we freak out. Like that clownfish kicks in, the anxiety kicks in. And so if we think of Merlin, right? When we think of him in that movie where he doesn't even want to leave his anemone. Is it the anemone or the coral or whatever he's in? He does not want to leave his home. He cannot even venture out slightly past that cliff, because in his mind, that cliff is the threat, versus keeping an eye out for sharks and thinking the shark is the threat. He actually thinks going outside of his home is the threat. And so when we start diving into these traumas as well, and we start looking at them, the traumas often don't make sense as far as how we're protecting against these traumas. So when these traumas are kicking in, it's kicking in from his childlike sense. It's usually from that childlike sense in us that it kicks in, and is protecting him from anything that may at all be a threat. So it's possible that these kids that bullied your son, he thought they were his friends. It's possible. I'm throwing things out there. So what I'm saying is not what is going on in your son's mind, right? Like it's a possibility. This is where we might start asking some reflective questioning. So reflective questioning is when we ask questions that helps them reflect on the answer. And that's where we can be like, helping him understand that the kids that bullied him are different from his friends. Now, I don't know his friends, so there's another layer to that as well, that it is possible that his friends sometimes joke around or tease or do different things, that he now as well, on a heightened sense, feels that that's bullying, right? or that gets in that nervous system, that gives that protection nervous system in him to believe that there's a threat. So from this, in just knowing that his friends are now a threat to him, and then that tells us that his nervous system is kicking in all the time. So this is another layer to this. Your nervous system is like a muscle. The stronger it is to connect, like the stronger it gets, the quicker it is to kick in. And so that stress nerve starts kicking in more and more and more from different things that it starts perceiving as a threat. And the resting nerve, the vagus nerve, the one that keeps us calm, really big picture think, and the anxiety like keeps us in that dolphin, that one is being overpowered. So when that happens, this nerve keeps kicking in all of the time. So what that happens as well, we see in these kids, is that he may just be on high alert all of the time, thinking that these bullies just might be coming out of the woodwork at any time, or they are still there, but they're maybe not bullying him, but he's still on high alert in case they are. So his stress nerve is kicking in. It's just constantly kicking in. And so at home, though, the threat's not there. So he's developing tools that you're bringing in for him, where you've talked about being calm at home and able to help him. So I'm just reading your message, making sure I'm covering everything. And so the thing, though, is that that nervous system is probably not kicking in the same at home. That nervous system is kicking in at school. So there's different things for this that we start looking into. Is first, start teaching him about his nervous system and how all of that works, depending on the kid. Some kids, depending if he's like a cerebral kid, this might be the coolest thing for him to learn about how this nervous system works and how it can kick in certain situations and get him on high alert. And he might be, with reflective questioning, starting to see that, oh yeah, like I am. As soon as I go on the schoolyard, I start looking like a shark, clownfish. I'm looking for the predators. And my clownfish kicks in going like, hey, he's into the human body. Okay. So if this is somebody that is into the human body, like they'll be so into that. And so you can start teaching about this nervous system and how it's interesting that when he's at home or he gets off of the school property, if that shark, so teaching them about the animals too, how that shark goes away, but then as soon as he goes onto school property, that shark and clownfish start kicking in. So starting to get him to notice that. And we start working on these steps to start helping him. Now, another piece in this is that I'm going to make an assumption based on what you've said, is that you are a calming source for him. He trusts you. He feels safe around you. And what you might notice is that when he is not around an adult that he feels safe and protected around, that's when the behaviors start, and that's when the clownfish kicks in or the shark kicks in. So checking to see on that with him as well. How does he do with that? Because if that's the case, then it might be at like recess or playtime. So two things to this. Recess or playtime, if there's a teacher in the yard that he trusts and feels safe around, if he could play around them or ask that teacher to kind of be closer to him so that he always knows that he could have that around there. The other thing that I would suggest is, because you are his safe space, is maybe getting play dates on a one-on-one. I wouldn't do it a group with the boys at the moment. I would talk with the parents and say, this is what happened. And now he's struggling and he's worried that any kids, if when you reflective questioned, you found out that his clownfish is now on high alert with any kids at the school. And so then I would get play dates with these kids one-on-one where you stay close by. And this is the thing, we have a learning ladder, and your son was at the top of the learning ladder where he was able to play on his own with these kids, totally fine. But a trauma happened, and now he doesn't feel safe to do that. So he needs to first have that safety of you there. So that would be maybe you in the room while he's playing with that boy. And then it could be you saying, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Is it okay if I just run to the bathroom and I'll be back? And he sees that you're going to the bathroom, but you've told him you're going to be back. Or I'm going to go to the kitchen and get you guys a drink. I'll be right back. So he starts seeing you go away and come back, and he's still safe with this boy. Right. And you're talking to him about it too, about you start helping him understand and see that those bullies, that not everybody is a bully. And it's okay for him to be in a shark and to be in that clownfish and be alert in case they are, and going through the steps with him. So there's a lot of steps here that I'm saying. These things were going to take time. The first thing I would do is start helping him understand the shark and the clownfish. Helping him understand if that's kicking in just as soon as he gets there, if it goes away, if he's around a certain teacher, if he's around a certain adult there, or around another child. I know my son in kindergarten, there was this one boy that his parents were going through a divorce, and he really struggled. And he would pick and poke and prod at kids. And my son just felt his energy. He's like, when I'm around him, I feel like there's this basketball going on inside. And I'd be like, go by Theo. Whenever that happens, go stand near Theo, because Theo was the most calming energy in this child I've ever met. So it's also maybe talking to him about, are there kids in your class that you feel calmer around, that you feel safer around? And have him maybe stay around that child, but he might not even feel safe around a child at the moment. He might need to be where he's around an adult. And that's where at recess, first getting him to play around that teacher, and then maybe getting the one-on-one play dates going and getting him to see that that child's okay. And then asking the parent if it's okay to talk to their child as well about maybe playing around the teacher and letting the child know what's happened to your son, so that they know he's feeling unsafe and needs a teacher around to make sure he'll be safe. Do they mind just playing wherever they are, just around where the teacher is at recess for a while? And getting it to be 2 kids and getting it to be 3 kids until he's with his group of friends that he was before, and seeing how that works. Now, here's the thing. No plan goes the way that we plan it. This sounds all great. This sounds like, hey, these got the answers. This makes sense to me. It's probably not going to go smooth. And that's where we have to let your child know that what we're trying, it's important for him to tell you when his clownfish and sharks start kicking in, right? And it's really important for him to understand that, so that he feels safe in letting you know, nope, clownfish kicked in. Nope, shark kicked in. I started really looking around. That didn't feel safe to me. And you reflective question. Even if you know the answer, you still reflexive questioning so they can figure out the answer in their mind as to why they didn't feel safe. Were they close enough to the teacher? Did other kids come by in too close of a proximity? Like, what was happening? And that way you start knowing and understanding how you can start helping them. And having one play date with this child might be all they need to realize that this is a safe friend. They may need more. You also might find out when you start seeing those kids together that there might be some small things that used to be jokes or used to be fun that now are triggers for your son. So you might find you have to start taking the steps in order to start to see how he reacts and how he's triggered, and see that. And so you might be able to work through this on your own, and you may not. I know that I do IFS, which is internal family systems, where we actually go in and talk to the part that is acting up. My son, one of my sons, not the one that I would love to go, but my other son goes to an IFS therapist as well. And he's working on parts of his that struggle, that give him anxiety, that come up. And it's going into those parts and finding out, why did that part kick in? So that is where I would go to if these steps don't come. So I've just given you so much. Okay. I don't want to give you too much because this is a lot and it's more than you can do all at once. These are small steps. This is going in and talking to the teacher and telling them about what you've just learned and seeing if there's if there's a safe adult that is aware. I know that at my kids' school, when they were in school, the recess teachers did switch around a lot. So that might be too much change for him, that it might even be he's allowed to stay in and play with the other child for a bit until he feels safe going outside with that child, with his friend, right? It might solely be that he's okay inside and not okay on the schoolyard if that's where the bullying took place. So it's trying different things to see what will feel safe for him. And it's finding that safety for him first. We need to find that safety. Once you can find the safety in him at whatever level it is, if that is that he stays in for recess for a little bit and plays with one kid and it rotates between a couple of his close friends and the parents understand and are okay with this until he can go outside, or only goes outside when he knows that one teacher's there that is on board with it. Maybe it's his teacher and only when it's that teacher's duty outside. So she knows what's going on and he knows that it's safe. Other than that, he does his recess inside. There's so many different ways to work at this, but it's going to take time, right? There's a trauma and he needs to find safety and he didn't find safety. If we think of this from a kid's point of view, nobody helped him. His friends didn't help him when he was being bullying. They probably don't, I mean, grade 1, they don't have the tools to know how, right? So there's so much in that, but helping him understand that there's safety. Maybe it's having a code word with his teacher, right? And so that his teacher knows that he's feeling unsafe. And so the teacher can start being able to give him that safety during that moment, which could just be that he's allowed to sit closer to the teacher, you know, and maybe she can rearrange if he's in the class with his friends that he's actually beside a friend so that he can start getting used to that friend being safety again. It's all of these things that we have to start coming up and thinking about. But safety is the biggest thing for him at the moment. We need to find out what does his nervous system need to feel safe? Is he safe in the classroom, but not feeling safe in the schoolyard? Is he feeling safe in the halls? So these are all questions you can ask him reflectively. Just say, you know, so like teach him about the dolphin and the shark and the clownfish and the turtle. Like, does he feel like just pulling into his turtle? That's episode 110 on my podcast. But if he starts pulling into those, and ask him where, say, do you feel like you're in dolphin when you're in your classroom? Or what animal do you feel in your classroom? That's even a better one. And he can tell you what animal he feels in the classroom. What animal do you feel in the halls? What animal do you feel in the schoolyard? And you can start seeing where his sense of safety is. You know, would you, if you are a clownfish in the classroom, would you feel more like you're less of a clownfish if you're sitting closer to the teacher, right? So it's finding those safety moments for him. We need to find that safety first. As he has safety at home, he doesn't have it at school, and figuring out where that can be. Now, I don't want to say too much. Okay. I was going to go into something that's even more about just even without this bullying, just other things that happen at school. But that's a whole other can of worms. I would first work at this. First, sit with him on this and help him out. Okay. So any questions for anybody that's listening? There's anything there. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm just checking to see. I got another email. I'm just making sure if anybody else asked a question for today as well. No, it wasn't another question of somebody asking. So I just want to recap on this, that when we're looking at any stressors with kids, the first thing is understanding that when they're doing these behaviors, it's because their body is in stress. So with this child too, moving them to another school, they're probably going to still struggle with the same stressors because they have this trauma that happened at school. And until you can work through that, they are not going to be into safety. So you probably have the same struggles moving out. But whenever if a child is yelling or hitting or screaming or getting really anxiety and questioning everything and worrying about everything, or totally turtling and shutting down and not saying anything, the first thing to note from that is that they're letting you know that they're struggling, that there's stress going on in their body in some way, shape, or form. The next thing we need to do is understand what stress animals are they and where are they, those stress animals? And then also understanding what your stress animal is. Because if your stress animal is coming out when they're stressed, then that's going to not help them feel safe. So those are the first two steps. Understanding that these responses in them is that they don't feel safe for some specific reason. The second thing is knowing the animals, their animal and your animal, and how to react in situation. Right? The next one is making sure that you're doing everything that you can to help them feel safe and start noticing if there is an adult that they feel safe around when the outbursts are happening, because the odds are it's not. So, but by safe, I mean like they could be in a classroom and the teacher could be, 3 desks down, and that might not feel safe for them. But when the teacher is right beside them, they feel safe. Right? So it could even be asking the teacher to just stand closer to their desk. It could be if the teacher leaves the room or the teacher's in the back of the room where they just can't see the teacher. That might feel unsafe for them, right? So we have to find out. So it's not just that we think, oh, the teacher isn't even there. It's how close is the teacher to their proximity, right? I think back to one of my kids in SK, now that I'm thinking of this fascinatingly, is there was this one boy where the teacher did find that when she held his hand, he was good. He would listen. He was behaved. He, yeah. And sometimes too, he just cuddled in. I know this child well, and the odd time too, if I held his hand, he would just lean into me really heavily. And he would just lean in, and that was his comfort. And as soon as he felt safe, then the behaviors that we were trying to stop ease, because they're able to go into dolphin. So those are the first 3 steps that I would really say to work on with this, is getting that safety going. With the trauma, because there is a trauma, there might need to be some trauma work done in order to really, really support them, but maybe not. So I would start with those 3 steps. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. Any questions? Yeah. Any other questions if anybody has them? I actually wanted to go through those steps today. So the reason I wanted to go through those steps is that they go through in every situation, but every situation we have to think of it differently. So whenever a child is melting down, we need to go through those 3 steps. All right. So I'm going to let this call be now. I'm going to stop the recording and I will send this all out to you. Any of you have any questions, let me know. These calls are happening for the next few weeks. So hop on a call, ask questions, email me your questions, and I'll go through them, and then I'll send the recording to the group. So anybody, just let me know. I'm here to help as best as I can. These are the calls that I do the same thing in the support circle, but the people are actually going through all the lessons. And as they're going through the lessons, they come in and ask questions based on where they're at as well. And I give them the support in there. Yeah. And then I help clients one-on-one. So if you want, book a 30-minute call with me and I will help you through.